Time to take your coding break. Howdy, coding pros, and welcome back to the Coding Break podcast. I am Tam Talk, your coding break reminder, the podcast host, your medical coding coach, as well as your medical coding instructor, where we talk about all things medical coding related. So, a question was posed to me, and I want to address it. And that question is, how do you deal with negative coding leadership? And I'll repeat that question. How do you deal with negative coding leadership? So the answer to this question can go far left, it can go far right, or it can stay in the middle. And I'm going to try my best to stay in the middle because there's many variables to this answer or to this question, because it will depend on the scenario, the circumstance, the situation, who's right, who's wrong. It could be the leader, it could be the coder. There's many variables when it comes to detecting negative coding leadership. So I'll try to come up with a generic example and try to address that specific example. So let's see. So I'm going to go with communication. So when I say communication, the lack of communication or the lack of positive reinforcement communication. So let's say your supervisor or your coding leadership, management, director, whatever, the only communication that you receive from them is negative feedback. So for example, they discuss everything that you're doing wrong. They never reinforce or communicate to you everything that you're doing well, right? But they're quick to tell you everything that you're doing wrong. Me personally, this is something that I have an issue with. And as a leader, a former leader of a coding department, I want to make sure there's a healthy balance of positive reinforcement, as well as an opportunity to educate an employee or a coder. Here's the thing: you want to make sure you're not just weighing in on the bad, but you're also soliciting positive feedback to that coder. You want people to win. You want to win. You want your department to win, and if you're a leader, you want your entire team to win, right? And keep in mind, everyone is not going to be perfect at every task, because all of us are different. Again, all of us are different, right? And I say us because as a leader, I am part of this team, so I'm including myself in that. All of us are different. Some of us have strengths in certain areas, and as well as we have weaknesses in others. So you have to know your team. You have to know what strengths your teams hold, as well as the weaknesses that they hold. So you want to encourage the positive or the strengths of your teammates. And then you also want to help or educate your teammates on their weaknesses, right? Because you want everyone to win. You want to win, right? And that's the competitiveness in me. So what I have noticed as I have stepped out of the leadership capacity, that there's more negative communication, but not enough positive reinforcement communication. And what I mean by that, maybe there's less meetings being had. I would say it's more directives versus a team collaboration, so to speak. Whereas the coders may be doing the day-to-day work, and you as a leader, it's your responsibility to communicate to the powers that be, your leadership, what's going on in your department. But if you're not listening to your day-to-day coders, you can't have a true idea of what's going on in your department. Because if you're looking at the spreadsheets or you're looking at the data, you're only seeing negative. But if you have taken, as a leader, you should take the time to communicate with that individual coder, again, whether it's their strengths or their weaknesses, and if it's a weakness, try to provide some type of coaching or pair them with someone who who has a strength in that particular area and encourage, try to help train them, right? And it's not because that coder is a terrible coder. It's just that they may have a weakness in a specific area, whether that be a specialty, whether that be in one of the processes, or something, whatever. I'm just throwing that out there. I'm not sure. It could be anything, right? You want to reinforce individually the coders who are doing well in certain areas, because that lets them know that they're doing well in their area, right? And then you also want to encourage those in their weaknesses and provide training, or pair them with someone who can provide training in a specific area, right? Because you want your team to win. And like I said, I noticed that those type of sessions are on a decline. And it's not just with a particular organization. It's all over the board. It's even outside of the medical coding industry. So, and again, because I'm going to say AI, or because technology, or the increased usage of technology. So, yes. So, in that case, I would blame the leadership, right? The leadership. And let me go on to say, leadership is more than a title. Leadership is more than a title. I don't care if you are the king or the queen of coding. If you don't have the qualities and the characteristics of a leader, your title doesn't mean anything. I need to see the actions behind the title. Like, so yeah, so it doesn't, and it's not a thing of envious or jealousy or anything like that. Again, for me, I was once in leadership. I chose to step down. So, but yeah, so that example, I included myself in that example. So yeah, but yeah, so in that case, I will blame the leadership, or I would say the leadership is at fault in that case, because they lack communication skills, and that's a weakness on the leader, because they lack communication, right, skills. And if you have someone on your team who has communication skills, they're going to pick up on that quickly, that your leader or that their leader lacks communication skills. And that is something they need to work on. So yeah, so that's I guess that is a good example of what I would use, is because, and is it technically the leader's fault? Yes and no. Again, because there's an increase in AI, there is an increase in technology, and then there's inserts productivity requirements, which we will always had productivity requirements, but I think they're solely focusing on that now. Versus they're looking at the numbers versus, I would say, the quantity, not the quality. So more so now these days. So yeah, that's all I'm saying. Yes. So in that case, how would I deal with that? How would I approach leadership to let them know? See, for me, I would ask them, but that's not everybody, how would you maybe go to HR, perhaps? I don't know if you have one-on-one sessions. That's another thing that I see a decline: one-on-one sessions with your manager, supervisor, or director. But if you have that one-on-one session, don't be afraid to bring it up. Maybe perhaps an email if you're good at writing. Your communication in writing is great. Perhaps an email. And if those things don't render any type of results or feedback, then perhaps HR, if you have a human resource department who can probably speak on your behalf. Yeah. See, for me, I would go directly to the person and have a sidebar conversation, not in a negative way, but just have a one-on-one session. I would create the one-on-one session, or an email, just to say, hey, I noticed that whatever, like, can you share that with me? And if it's something I'm doing wrong, please share it with me, because how am I going to learn if you don't share that with me? You see what I'm saying? How am I going to learn? How am I going to improve if you don't share that information with me, whether it's good or bad? And you're sharing the bad, but are you providing training, coaching for that, for me, so that I can benefit from that? So that's how I would do it. Now, everybody may not be able to do that. I do that, I do that. I don't want to tell you to go somewhere else, look for employment somewhere else. I mean, perhaps you should, if it's been an ongoing thing and you're getting tired or you're becoming burnt out because of that. Or you've exhausted all of your recourses or resources on this matter. So yeah, maybe a new environment, a new role would help. That is a good question. So, there's different ways that it can be handled, but I would try, like they say, go up the chain of command, like have that one-on-one conversation with them, or perhaps start with an email, then start with the one-on-one session, and go above their heads. Shoot, I don't know. If that doesn't work, go to human resources. The one thing I will say that you will need to do, if you don't do anything else, document. Just like we tell our providers, we educate our providers, you want to make sure what you're doing is documented, right? It's documented. Whether you had a phone call conversation or a video Zoom Teams meeting conversation, you want to summarize that meeting in an email, like a recap. So during this meeting, you can start off like, greetings, thank you for taking the time to meet with me, and just to recap what we discussed, da 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 da. So yes, so that is the one thing I would say: document everything. Like I said, just like we encourage and we educate our physicians to document everything, we want to make sure we're doing the same thing as well when it comes to our communication with our leadership. So yes, so that's actually what I would do. There's so many different scenarios, so many different things, variables that could make us think that coding leadership is negative. And like I said, they may be negative, or it could be the coder is negative. The coder may not be doing something, or they are doing something that can negatively impact the team or what have you. So, but yeah. So that's what I would suggest. That's what I would recommend. That's how I would approach it if I felt like there was some negativity or lacking of positive reinforcement from my leadership. Because if you don't know your strengths and weaknesses based upon their review of the data or their genuine interaction with you, you don't know how you're doing. So when it comes to review time, you don't know how to address your review because you never receive that one-on-one information, or you can just mark all high marks for yourself, right? Because if you didn't hear any, no news is good news, right? Anyway, I'm just joking. But yeah, so that's how I would approach it when it comes to coding leadership, especially with that example of the lack of communication. And as I said, document. So yeah, that's all that I have for this coding break. Again, if you have any other questions specific or relating to medical coding, please do not hesitate to DM me on the social media platforms, send me an email, or comment on the YouTube channel, YouTube video. So yeah, so that's all I have for this coding break. So until next time, toodles.